So today we're talking about one of the biggest criminal cases in rap/gang history. We're talking, of course, about the YSL case. Now, there are 28 defendants on this case, including the supposed shot caller for this entire gang, Young Thug. All 28 of these defendants were wrapped up on RICO/gang charges out of the state of Georgia. And we just had one of the craziest twists in this case that I personally have ever seen. One of the defendants' attorneys in this case just got wrapped up and arrested in charges having to do with this case. Now, this attorney's name is Nicole Fagan, and this lady has some very interesting social media going on. Here's a few things that we've seen that are kind of colorful for somebody who is a professional attorney out there on social media promoting about herself. Things like her publicly throwing up gang signs, comparing herself to famous rappers, and talking about being a boss bitch with a high-profile dude. That stuff's all fun and games until a prosecutor is showing those pictures in a court when you're the defendant. Now look, we all know that I used to be a career criminal for 20 years, but when it comes to a high-profile legal proceeding like this, y'all know that I'm a little bit out of my depth, so you know we're gonna call in the big dog, and today I'm gonna be talking with Aaron Delgado, one of the most premier attorneys out of Central Florida. This is 100% the dude that I would want standing by my side if I was walking into a courtroom on a big-ass case. Now, in my old hood in Florida, Daytona Beach, Volusia County, this dude was an absolute street legend. This dude was the dude that you knew if you got him, you were gonna get the best possible sentence that you could absolutely get. So everybody was on this dude trying to get with him. And now me and him have developed a friendship. We talk all the time, and he's agreed to talk to this community about this specific case. So y'all know what time it is. Let's go! One concern of young Americans today is the ever-increasing cost of housing. Many are finding the American dream just out of reach, and they're worried about their future and how they will provide a housing for themselves. Containing Luxury is providing cost-effective, luxurious housing to those who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to own their own home. They are also offering unique investment opportunities that start at just $100, and you will find links to both of these sites in the description of this video. Check out our sponsor, Containing Luxury, and see if they're a good fit for you. All right, you guys, so let me introduce you to Aaron Delgado. Aaron Delgado is the attorney that I wish that I would have had on all of my cases out of Florida, man. I knew everyone knows in Central Florida that if you get in trouble, this is the dude you want to walk into court with. This is that beast of an attorney. And he was out of my price range when I was getting in trouble, but we're friends now, and he decided that he would come on here and talk with us about this whole YSL situation, particularly around Nicole Fagan, the attorney for one of the YSL members who has just gotten arrested and is hemmed up on some charges. Aaron, welcome. Thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah, hey, great to get to do this. I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. And yeah, we go back a long way. We have a lot of mutual friends, and we kind of, passed in the hall, so to speak, a lot of times. But, if you'd ever give me a call, I'd have given you a great deal, I promise.
I appreciate you.
And now you turn a new chapter in your life, so that's behind you now. Every now and then I represent some high-profile people. I don't think I've represented that many rappers. Not many rappers are coming out of Daytona Beach right now, I guess, maybe. I have one or two cases like that. But what's shocking to me about this case, and I think we're seeing it in a lot of other high-profile defendant cases, is that the lawyer's behavior is just ridiculous. They're acting like they are the client. And I was talking to you before we came on about the difference between being a criminal defense attorney and a criminal defense attorney. Lawyers like everybody else. There's good lawyers, bad lawyers, lawyers that break the law. I'm not talking about a lawyer who gets a DUI or, doesn't pay his taxes. I'm talking about lawyers who are about that life. And they have stepped over the line from being a person who represents people accused of a crime to participating in the criminal activity of their clients. And I understand, especially when you're a young lawyer, I think there's a lot of temptation because you want to be cool. It's no fun to tell your friends, oh, I represent, crackhead Bob, or, oh, I represent this homeless person who took a leak behind the building. I mean, that's not a sexy story, but if you're like, oh, I represent, young so-and-so or easy so-and-so or MC so-and-so, I'm showing my age with MC. I don't think anyone's MC anymore, but, that's more exciting. That's more fun. And I think it's seductive, especially if you're not that far along in your career and you think, oh, this is going to make me famous. This is going to make me big time. I'm going to get on Instagram, I'm going to get on YouTube, I'm going to become a celebrity off this case. And those are all the wrong reasons, and that's the worst way to get involved in a case. You need to be professional. You need to make sure that you're charging a fair fee for your services, and be about that money. If you want to be about anything, be about the money, about getting paid. Your clients are about that. But when you start wanting to be a criminal, not just a criminal defense attorney, that's when you get into real big trouble. And I've seen a lot of young lawyers go down that road, especially when they're representing, people that are accused of drug dealing and things like that. And look, it can be seductive. I mean, you see it, the fast lifestyle. Your clients have got wads of cash. They're going out partying every night. They're going to clubs. They're doing all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, they have a cover story. They have a club. They have a music label. They have a this. They have a that. So at first, you can tell yourself, oh, well, this isn't that shady. I'm just going to my client's club, or I'm going to their concert. But we're seeing more and more lawyers stepping over the line. And I don't know if it's just they can't say no eventually, or they really are just someone who just is so desperate to be accepted into that world that they'll do anything they can once they get in there. You have to stand up to your clients. I knew a guy who flew helicopters, and he would fly for celebrities. And, a lot of times you don't want to be the guy that says no to some famous musician if he wants you to fly him to some concert. But at the end of the day, if you get up in the bad conditions and you crash, you're all going to die. You have to stand up to your client, even if that means you lose the gig. And he was saying, look, I don't want to be the cool dead pilot. And in fact, he said that may have been what happened with Kobe Bryant, is that the pilots were so enamored with his celebrity status and wanted to be cool and wanted to be his buddy that they overlooked risks that they wouldn't have overlooked with someone less famous. Same thing with criminal cases here. I mean, I don't know any of these people personally. I'm not friends with her. So everything I'm saying is just based on what I've seen in the media, what I've seen on social media, and how she's portrayed herself. And how she's portrayed herself and all the memes and all the jokes are that she's about that life. She's got some outrageous stuff on her social media. I don't know if you've seen a lot of it, right?
Let's talk about that real quick. I've seen a lot of her Instagram pictures where she is seemingly throwing up gang signs. She really seems to enjoy doing the finger guns at the camera ever since she's gotten on with the YSL crew representing them. And that doesn't seem professional. And in fact, I think that could probably get her a little bit of exposure when she goes to trial for these charges against her. Isn't this something that is kind of like a prosecutor's wet dream, to be able to bring in pictures of her from her own social media throwing up gang signs?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, the other thing I tell people is, especially young lawyers, or when I sometimes lecture for the Florida bar, I give continuing legal education classes, and I tell people, you're a lawyer 24/7. And I'm in Florida, so I always say the Florida bar. The bar can reprimand you or discipline you for stuff that you do outside the courtroom. If you're in a bar and you behave like a jerk and that person reports you to the bar, you can be in trouble for that. It has nothing to do with being a lawyer. You can get in trouble for stuff you say in social media, how you portray yourself. If it reflects, poorly on the profession, someone could report you to the bar, and you could have to explain it, because we have to hold ourselves to a certain standard. Now, you get into First Amendment free speech, parody issues. So being in bad taste may not get you a bar complaint, but certainly something the bar is going to look at. I mean, they tell you flat out when you're applying to law school, the bar is going to look at your social media when you apply to become a lawyer. So keep that in mind for the next 3 years. Don't post ridiculous stuff on social media, because you're going to be explaining it. I mean, I'm looking at the ones here, not just the gang signs or whatever, which you can always laugh off, I guess, or try to until you're indicted in a RICO act. But, she's got things like, if your man's name holds weight, you can't just be out here acting like a regular bitch. And she's got a pistol in hand and she's like blowing it off. I mean, yeah, I definitely don't think that reflects well. It's certainly not professional. And again, you can make the argument, oh, my social media is for my friends. That's just not how things are these days. What you put out there is going to be, everyone's going to go through it. You're going to go through it. The YouTube community is going to go through it. People that don't like you are going to go through it. And God forbid you lose that trial. The next lawyer who comes in to take your head off on a post-conviction motion, they're going to be looking at that stuff too. So, yeah, I think it was, maybe she wasn't thinking about it at the time. And I'm surprised it's still up. I think I would have taken anything down that I could have that reflected on me poorly. The prosecutor is definitely going to go through this. And at this point, they've got it. I mean, if there was anything useful, they've already got it. And if they don't have it, they'll subpoena it from Instagram or Facebook and get it that way. But,
So do you think that taking it down would make her look more guilty in the eyes of a jury at this point? Or,
I don't know that that would come into evidence in a trial if she went to trial. I think there's a pretty good argument that I took it down to avoid pretrial publicity. I took it down to not taint the jury. I took it down to, because I realized it seemed inappropriate or whatever the case may be. Whether or not she's guilty of the underlying case, I don't know that this would come in because it's probably pretty prejudicial. The jury is going to think poorly of her. It may not be relevant to the actual case. But if I was representing her, I would absolutely have told her, hey, take this stuff down. If the prosecution wants to use it, then we'll fight over each and every piece of it. But the last thing you want is, the community at large seeing this stuff. And to me, it just doesn't reflect well. And, you're judged first in the court of public opinion, no matter what anyone says. And then you're secondly judged in the court of law.
Thank you for that. I think that's important and very overlooked, that the court of opinion is going to get you in trouble every time, because things in court of law have to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, right? That's the assertion there. The court of public opinion is brutal. And, regardless of your legal circumstances, it can really ruin your life. There's people out there ruining their lives with social media every single day without even thinking about the consequences of what they post.
Absolutely. And we're in such a responsive 24/7 consumer world with so many video cameras and so many recorders out there. It's changed how everyone works. I mean, I have a contract with some of the police unions where if an officer's involved in a shooting, I come in right away to give legal counsel to that officer. Because in Florida, if an officer's involved in a fatal shooting, they're going to basically be automatically suspended with pay while they do an investigation to make sure that it was, a righteous shooting as opposed to a homicide. And when I come in, it used to be, we wouldn't have the video right away. They wouldn't make any comment. Nowadays, they're making a press release. As I'm pulling up to talk to my client, the chief of police is going on air, giving a press release, because if you don't get out there with the story, if you don't get out there with the images, if you're not the first person to release the video, then you're going to be playing catch up the entire time. And they want to be out there right away to to start the public campaign so that people don't, if they don't release it right away, they're hiding something. They don't release it. If someone else leaks it first, now they're playing catch up. Now they look like they're on the defensive. So I've seen that affect every area, from like the prosecutors, the government, the police, down to, just normal people. So I think you have to be aware right away of how you're going to look in the public eye. And whether or not it should, that influences what kind of plea offers you get, how vicious the prosecution is going to be, things like that. I mean, if you have a high profile case where the media is chomping all over the bit to talk about it, and you're getting thousands of emails sent to the prosecutor about, make sure you do this or fry that or how dare you, that's not a case the state attorney can quietly resolve. That's not a case you can get a diversion on. It becomes too high profile. So you have to be mindful of that. And you have to be mindful that state attorneys are elected officials. So they're politicians. They're aware of what the optics of a situation are. So are a lot of police chiefs. I mean, they may not be elected officials, but they're politicians. They're aware of what the optics are. So they're doing the same thing from their side as a good defense attorney should be doing, as a good, PR campaign manager should be doing. If I was this young lady, I'd hire a PR manager, or at least consult with like a crisis management team. And say, what can I do to get out of here? Get me some pictures of some orphans and some, puppies or something quick.
So Nicole Fagan, what is her actual charge? Is it tampering with the witness, tampering with evidence? What is the actual linguistics of the charge?
They just kept saying arrested on a gang charge. I think it's important to remember that, and I don't know for sure how this works in Georgia, but in Florida, you can be arrested for anything. Then it's up to the state to charge you by information or indictment. I think Georgia uses indictments with the crime. So what that means is the police believe, more likely than not, they've got probable cause that she broke the law, and they're saying, quote, gang charges. I don't know if that's a RICO statute or what exactly that is. We can get into what they're saying she did wrong, but I haven't heard the actual name of the charge other than just gang charges. But until the state attorney's office fully investigates it and files, she isn't officially charged. So she's just been arrested. And they may look at the evidence and say, we can't make this stick, and, drop it. Now, she's still been arrested. She may still have to deal with the bar. Certainly she can have to deal with the repercussions. But right now, yeah, she's just been arrested, not yet formally charged. I believe the two things are criminal street gang activity, which I don't know what that means to a
think it's a
Florida
Georgia
lawyer.
thing.
Yeah, it's a Georgia thing. I'm guessing it's some sort of RICO-esque predicate offense. And then the other is criminal solicitation to commit the offense of tampering with evidence, which is quite a mouthful. And I
Yeah.
think that stems from the fact that she apparently heard that there was a warrant for this individual, tipped them off, and also gave them some advice about trying to dispose of or get rid of evidence. And so I think, when I first heard that, I thought that was really potentially overreaching by the state. Because one of the things you don't want to have happen, right, is you don't want the government to make it impossible for people accused of crimes to hire lawyers. You don't want to make it so that defense attorneys are too scared to take a case. There for many years in South Florida, if you were a good drug defense lawyer, the feds would literally start targeting you, investigating you, putting pressure on you. So you would say, to hell with this, it's not worth it. I don't want to be mixed up. I don't want to be a co-conspirator with the X, Y, or Z cartel. I don't want to worry that the feds are going to raid my office and arrest me and my secretaries. And it was actually had a chilling effect. People were saying, hey, you can't get great lawyers to take these cases. They're so scared of what the government's doing. And, I don't know how scared they really were. That was a little bit before my time, but government can do that kind of stuff. I've experienced it. I've seen it. I know lawyers that have seen it and experienced it. It's terrifying. So at first I was really kind of outraged that the government was doing this to a defense attorney. But I think the most important thing that I didn't know right away was she wasn't actually the person's attorney. And that makes a big difference. She was the attorney of another conspirator, or whatever you want to call it. And she went out of her way to call this person up and tell them, hey, they're looking for you. And by the way, entirely different. If I'm representing you and I hear there's a warrant for your arrest, it's totally appropriate for me to call you and say, hey, there's a warrant for your arrest. I would definitely do that. It's safe for you, safe for the police. You don't want there to be any issue. You don't want to worry as a defendant that they're going to question you, or that they're going to, rough you up or anything like that. The police don't want to worry that you're going to pull a gun, that you're not going to go quietly, that you're going to go high speed and elude them. Everyone would much rather that it be a peaceful surrender, right? And a lawyer's job can be to facilitate that. So, but now that I know that she wasn't representing that person, I see some of the concern right there. And then the second thing is telling the client to get rid of evidence. And that's a fine line. My wife's a lawyer, and this morning, as I was telling her about what I was going to be doing, she said, well, be careful what you say. I don't want you to get in trouble. Because she was arguing with me about how, you can't tell a client to ditch a gun. You can't tell a client to wipe their phone. I said, well, I think it depends. I think it depends on what you know. It depends on if there's like a warrant, if there's evidence on there. But I'll give you an example of advice I give to clients all the time that I think is perfectly legitimate. I tell them, hey, listen, if you believe the police may be looking at your behavior, or they may come to arrest you, you want to make sure your house is perfectly clean. I don't know if you have anything that would be embarrassing you wouldn't want the police to see. I don't know if you got an 18-year-old kid who's got a bag of weed hidden somewhere in their room. I don't know what goes on in your private life, but unless you want the cops, pulling up your wife's lace panties, or looking at your sex toys, or wondering about why you got, leopard skin handcuffs under the bed. Maybe that's just me and my leopard skin handcuffs, but, whatever goes, right? And so I couch it in terms like that, so that I'm not saying, hey, make sure you shred the evidence of the crime or something like that. But I'm letting them know, hey, I've seen enough search warrants. I know how cops are. They're going to be, even if it's not illegal, but it's funny or hilarious, they're going to take note of that stuff. So if it was me, I would want to have nothing in my house that's going to be in the least bit embarrassing, alarming, suspicious, or whatever. Or just, I wouldn't want them to see it. I don't want to go through I don't want to expose any extra evidence to the government that I absolutely have to, right? So I would spring clean my house, and I don't think that's illegal. Now, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got, the police are looking for this piece of evidence, and I say, oh, we'll go destroy that piece of evidence. Yeah, that's problematic. But again, I think that's going to also come down to exactly what she said and how she said it. Maybe she rapped it. Maybe it's a couple bars. I don't know.
You can get away with more if you put it on a beat, bro.
You absolutely can. Yeah. Yeah. It's your defense. Just rap the whole thing. I think, the other thing and I know we talked about this a week or two ago, I'm guessing, and I don't know for a fact that some of this stuff came up on a wire, but it's also possible that the defendant, turned her in or told the police what happened, either on purpose, as like, hey, let me give you some information about what's going on, or kind of inadvertently just explaining, oh, well, I heard about it from this lady. She called me, and maybe he kind of snitched, quote unquote, without meaning to, or maybe he snitched on her to try to get a better deal, or maybe she self-snitched on a wire. That's always a concern. In Florida, if the government is investigating a gang, especially if it's a gang that they can't infiltrate, like it's pretty hard to get your average FBI agent into like a young gang of people who are 18, 19 years old. They're going to be a little suspicious when a 50-year-old guy with a receding hairline is like, yo, homies, what's up? It's not,
Hello,
he's not going
fellow
to
gang member.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they can pretend to be a biker gang or something. I don't know. But if they can't, it's actually one of the criteria to get a wiretap is that basically you've exhausted all your other investigative means, and the only thing left is a wiretap, meaning you can't get an informant inside. You can't get, close to the gang for whatever reason. Or when I say gang, it could be criminal, drug enterprise, whatever. So I would guess that they had a wire or wiretaps up on these guys, and they were listening to these conversations or intercepting text messages. In that case, when she called, they would have been able to listen to that call. Normally a call between a client and their attorney is protected, attorney-client privilege, and the police can't listen to it. The state attorney's office can't listen to it. But, here, if you're not the person's attorney, they're going to have a pretty good argument that it wasn't attorney-client privilege, especially when she was the one who initiated the call. If you call me in the middle of the night and you say, hey, Aaron, and you ask me for advice, well, you're the customer, you're the consumer. It's pretty clear that you're reaching out for legal advice. And even if money hasn't changed hands, as long as you have the expectation that you're talking to an attorney and in your mind you're seeking legal advice, then that conversation will be protected. But if I just call you up out of the nowhere and I start rattling things off to you, then I don't think I'm in the same position as you. And I can't claim it's attorney-client privilege because I'm not the one who makes the privilege. The privilege belongs to the client. So I think those twists are going to be really important in her case. And, I don't know enough yet. They haven't released all that information. And truthfully, if there is a wiretap, they may not even want to release that information in the near future because that could compromise their investigation. If you start figuring out, oh, wait a minute, hey, they heard that call. Well, wait a minute. How do they, and then they start putting things together. At the end of a wire, at least in Florida and in federal court, they have to send out a notice that your call was intercepted. And that is a terrifying piece of mail to get when you open up and says, notice your call has been intercepted. Have you had one of those?
I've gotten multiple of those actually to do with a case that I think you might be familiar of the circle when they hit the pagans. Yep. And I think you may have represented one of those dudes. And
I got the same letter that you got because they had intercepted one of my calls in that thing. Yeah, like someone had called me from the clubhouse or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Terrifying. You start going through like, what did I say?
Especially when people are like going to prison for a long time on that case. And you're just like sitting there like,
I think I told you, where they hid the wire, they hid the microphone in the shitter.
Yeah.
They had a John Boy or a porta potty.
Yeah, in the clubhouse.
Yeah, the guys that installed the porta potty were FBI agents or whatever. And it's funny in the wiretap order or the sneak and peek order, the judge said the camera can face out, but it can't face in. So you can't capture a bunch of bikers taking a shit, but you can listen to them plot. And I guess the idea was where they put the porta potty, they could pick up conversations from people like walking by in the neighboring area. But otherwise, you'd just be sitting there listening to people take gross dumps, which is talk about a low man on the totem pole job at the FBI. Congratulations, graduate. You're on outhouse duty.
Wire up the shitter for the pagans, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. The fucking Dolby Atmos digital surround sound.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's crazy, man.
But no, that's a terrifying notice to get, right? And they wait until the end of the case because, if a month after that conversation, they release that information, people are going to start putting two and two together. And there are some very smart people out there. You give some very smart people enough methamphetamine and they stay awake long enough, they'll track down every phone number. They'll go through all 10,000 phone calls and figure out who, what, where, when, how, why. So, you know, you got to be careful if you're a law enforcement officer that you don't let the cat out of the bag. So, you know, I think we'll find out more about that. And I think she had also been on their radar. She had been on their radar after, I think the shooting that started all of her problems was in September of 2022.
Damn.
So, you know, I don't know what all has been going on for the last, you know, year, but I would imagine they've gathered a lot of information, a lot of evidence in that time period. That's going to fuck up the trial too. Like, I mean, think about that from this perspective of like, now you find out your lawyer's been under investigation this whole time. You know, if that's the case, I'm speculating, but if you find out, hey, my lawyer's been under investigation as a defendant, I think I would say, wait a minute, well, how do I know that there wasn't something going on behind the scenes? How do I know that, you know, if my lawyer's is the state playing fair with the lawyer? What point did the lawyer know? Is the lawyer trying to save herself by throwing me under the bus? I mean, I think there's all kinds of concerns. So I would say that, you know, this is going to add a whole new twist to the case if anything comes, because, you know, the first thing I would do is if I was involved, I would look and say, okay, you know, did she do anything in her representation that was below par? You know, was she inadequate? You know, and that's where the social media and all that other stuff come into play. If you can look at that kind of stuff and make the argument she was more interested in fame and clout than representing her clients and started making these serious mistakes of judgment, you know, maybe she's not giving her clients the best legal representation if she's doing all these other things. Again, pure speculation, you know, and again, I hope it's all wrong, and I hope she's acquitted. And, you know, I always root for acquittals on everybody. I don't care how heinous they are. Anytime I hear a not guilty, I'm happy.
Those are my favorite words. Well, Aaron, man, I really appreciate your time. We should absolutely do this again the next time there's a case that I'm not educated enough on. I really appreciate your expertise, and I know my community is going to as well. Would you plug your socials and your website for anybody out in the community that wants to hear more and see more from you? Yeah, sure. So my website's communitylawfirm.com. We have a YouTube channel, communitylawfirm.com. You know, I'm in Central Florida, Daytona Beach, and that's how, you know, we got connected, because this is your old stomping grounds. So if you're ever in Central Florida and you need legal help, or just, you know, questions about law in Florida or whatever, hit us up. We're happy to help. We're going to keep you guys updated on this and the rest of the trial, because honestly, this just keeps getting more and more wild. And until then, man, go ahead and do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that share button. If you're not subscribed yet, you already know what you're doing wrong, man. You're doing me dirty. I thought we was friends. I thought we was better than that. Yo, until the next one love, y'all. Be good or be good at it, baby.